Now I'll quickly explain what we're going to do, and then I'm going to put on my dust mask, eye protection, ear protection, all that kind of stuff, and get going. But the first thing we got to do is get a fine point carbide. Okay, comes to a point, it tapers down to a fine point. To do the outline, we're going to start on the right up and down. Okay, you want it perpendicular to the wood you're carving on. Make sure it stays up and down. You don't want to tip this way, you don't want to tip that way. Okay, you want it to stay straight up and down in your work surface, and you're going to go around and you're going to plunge down, about halfway or the whole length of the burr. Okay, on your standard size fine points, that is going to be roughly about 1/8 of an inch if you go the whole distance of the actual carbide. You got where the carbide is, and then it turns into the shaft. If you were to sink it all the way down, you're going to get roughly about 1/8 of an inch deep. You don't have to do that right off the get-go because we're going to relieve the background and do a whole bunch of stuff. So the most important thing is to stay perpendicular and just trace the outside line. Once you get the outside line traced, you're going to come in, and I use the same point. I don't see much need to change it, because what we're going to do is we're going to trace the drawing, we're going to trace the clip out, just barely lightly scoring the top of the wood surface. We're just going to stick it in there and get a light scoring so we can see what's going on. Once we get that established, we'll peel off the stencil film, and the design will be laid into the wood, ready for the next stage. All right, let me get my gear on, and I'll show you the carving process.
Okay, so let's get started. I'm plunging down again just about half the distance of the cutting flutes on this carbide. I'm not super concerned about how deep I'm going. The point I want to make is that I am following the line. I'm tracing that line as accurately as possible to get exactly what I need so that the design comes out how I want to see it. If you're not very accurate, you're not going to get a good representation of the design on your wood. Now what you see also is the magnifying glass, the optivisor that I'm wearing on my head. It does come into the screen throughout the carving process as I'm showing you this. So I want you to see it. I want you to know that I'm using it. It is perfectly okay to use. Now what you're also seeing is I sped this video up. I didn't want to do one of those videos where they explain what's going on and get started on the carving process and then skip ahead to the finished piece. I wanted to at least show everything. And with the technology that we have available to us today with video editing, it is easy enough to speed it up so that you can see the entire process. You can see that I'm not super exact, that the burr comes out of the wood every once in a while and I skip across the surface. Now, depending on the finished surface you are working on a practice piece like this, if you skip and come out of the wood and mar the surface outside of it, that's fine. Also, this is part of the background that's going to be removed anyway, so it's not going to matter whether or not I skip. If I were to carve too far in at a certain depth, like say the depth I'm going around right now, and follow a line too far in, then I might have some issues as trying to fix that slight mistake or, cover it up so that it's not very apparent of what's going on. But as you can see, sometimes the head pops out. That carving head pops out and it mars the surface. Sometimes it doesn't. Okay, I'm trying to be as exact as possible. You also have seen that not every line is followed perfectly. Sometimes I go back and do it again. All right, now that we've done the outside, we're going to go on into the design itself, and we're going to lightly score it. All right, it's just like taking a Sharpie marker and writing very lightly on a pen, on paper. All right, so you got your Sharpie marker. Pretend you're using markers for a minute, and you're just very lightly, you want a very thin, light line with your marker on the paper. That's all we're doing here. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. It doesn't take a lot of force to get through the carving, the stencil film, and to score the surface of the work material. Now, throughout every step of the process, throughout this entire carving video, I want you to remember one thing. If you don't remember anything else about this, remember this one thing. do not force the handpiece. Do not force the burr through the wood. This is not a carving handpiece that has a lot of torque behind it. There's not a lot helping it except for its speed. There's a very small turbine in there that is spinning super fast. All right, you don't have horsepower behind your handpiece. You don't have so many horsepower on a motor with so many RPMs like you do with a flex shaft machine or some of the other machines. This operates solely off the speed of the turbine. So don't force it. If you are forcing or moving too fast through the material and the burr stops in the material, you're going too fast. You're applying too much pressure and you're going to burn out the turbine. That is the only reason why these turbines go out, and you don't want them to fail on you. Okay? So be light, be careful, and throughout this tracing point part right here, be as exact as you can, but be fluid.
Okay, so once all the lines are traced, there you go. We can see the design now quite easily. It's ready to go. We've established the background. We've established all the petals. And if you noticed, yeah, I wasn't super exact on some of my lines. Some of them I skipped. Some of them I got off the line. But guess what? Because we only just scored it, and we were careful when we were doing the background that we didn't run into the actual design, we're okay. Everything else, because as an artist, we can make it however we want to make it. So once we got the design done, we are ready to pull the stencil film off. Okay, I just take a razor blade, very carefully, as always, okay, the outside, and just begin to peel and start pulling it off. Just work it one little section at a time until you get it all the way removed. So let me back up a little bit so you can see a little bit better what's going on without getting my hands in the way. And just slide it right under the stencil film. Now if you're working on a finished surface, you're going to want to be extra careful. Guess what? This is just practice. Practice. We get used to using the blade. We can get used to using the tools. We can get used to how the stencil film peels off. That's what practice is all about, right? Getting comfortable doing what we're doing so that when we go to a bigger project, we got the confidence to just do it. No big deal, right? Tell you right now, when I first started carving on a $50 piece of wood or a $200 piece of wood, or say I wanted to carve on a gun stock or something, you know, $3,000 gun stock, no, I wouldn't have been comfortable doing it. But after doing it on MDF for a while, getting comfortable with that, gaining control over the handpiece and the tools and knowing what each tool does, each burr does, how to clean it up, how to polish it up, how to fix minor mistakes. Now, I'll carve anything. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm not going to carve your antique gun because I think antique guns are antique for a reason. But any modern day guns, you know, they can be carved. They're very beautiful. For a little personalization. That's kind of fun, but that's not the point of this. In fact, I don't even do gun stock carving. I like to carve other things. I like to do panels and different things like that. But there's so many different aspects of using this handpiece. Okay, you can do the same thing on an eggshell. You can do the same thing on a gourd. You can do the same thing on all different kinds of woods. If you got little music boxes or something you want to carve, or you got a blanket chest, or a trunk, anything, you know, embellishments are beautiful. And this is a tool that will do it all and add more detail. If you decide to put lots of detail in it, it will do it. And this is the best way that I found to start. There we go, one more piece. There it is. Let me get the stickers off my finger. There you go. Okay, we can see the whole design. Now, if you did get finished doing this, and there are some areas that you cannot see, well, go ahead right now. Take your handpiece, go back in and add those little bits, okay? If you didn't see it, you got to pull up your reference clip art. Go ahead and pull up your reference clip art and go ahead and finish drawing it in. No big deal. No time lost. It's all just part of it. All right? So now we're ready to remove the background.